everybody, welcome to That's Football. Erik ten Hag has been sacked. VAR is a disgrace and it's a Premier League review show. Lots to get into, but we have to start off with the biggest news in the Premier League, that Erik ten Hag has been sacked. Sacked by Michael Oliver, who's probably a name that needs to be trending as well because he's a joke. He's an absolute joker and I will not be talking about that. But Erik ten Hag sacked. I tell you what, we were just talking about this before we started, Will. There will be that whole thing with Hodgson when he got sacked with Liverpool, where I was like, keep him. There'll be a lot of rival fans looking at this, and I think I'd be very interested to get their comments in. As a rival fan, what are your thoughts on Erik ten Hag being sacked for Manchester United?
Yeah, well, you speak of those days, don't you? We famously, in my mind, when Steven Gerrard was at Aston Villa, they played at Craven Cottage, lost 3-1 on a Tuesday night. I was absolutely loving life. The next day, don't know what you've got till it's gone. Unai Emery came in, the club's been turned around, they're going to Champions League football. So for your perspective, this could be a new dawn, a new day. And is Gareth Southgate going to be feeling good? Because he was the one for England, but could he be the one for Manchester United?
You just completely took the show into fantasy straight away because that's not going to happen.
But that is not fantasy because he is currently third favourite. Van Nistelrooy is at the top just because of obvious reasons, which I think we can get into. Second is Xavi, then third is Gareth Southgate. So that's not me, Mark. That's the people at the bookmakers, that's the traders, that's the money makers, that's the people making the real decisions in life.
Yeah, Bradley says a very sad day. 3 points at Old Trafford is now not so easy. Well, it depends what they do next. I think that when I look at it, it had to happen. Last night was sort of the point where I'd go, it had to happen. It's weird how it happened, but I think you've got to look at a bigger picture beyond West Ham. Everybody would look at that and go, if Michael Oliver doesn't make what is a ridiculous decision, and we'll talk about that in a moment, would a draw sack ten Hag? Probably not. If Delo scores the chance and Man United score the chances and they win that game, ten Hag would still be manager. But it's not really about that result. It's the fact that he's been on thin ice and one more loss was probably going to do it, and that's what's done it. The circumstances of the West Ham result, I would say probably a little bit harsh to just say that was a performance to sack him, but there was many other performances before that, and you're 14th in the league and it's not undeserved.
No, and it's not changing, it's not going anywhere, is it? I think Gary Neville was speaking about, we're nearly a quarter of the way through the season, aren't we? So you want to see some signs of improvement. The domestic cup and the domestic trophies are fantastic, and as a football fan you always want to win that, but as Manchester United look to improve to try and get back to some semblance of where they were before, league position is key, isn't it? And you're not only slipping away from top four, it looks like, you could even be out of Europe in the way it was going. There's just no sign of improvement under Erik ten Hag, and I think they were trying to wait for as long as they could, couldn't they? Sam C got some fantastic reports in the last show, basically saying that they were trying to wait for as long as they could, but that Manchester United, ultimately just the patience ran thin, didn't it?
Arsenal fan Robinson Crusoe. We'll be talking about Arsenal, who I think actually sort of bottled it a bit in the second half, but plenty to talk about on the show. But he says, I'm an Arsenal fan. I sympathise. Mikel played back five football for 2 years until he could get players for his vision. Instant success is a bad sign, but consistency until a team is built from the manager's vision is the key. I think whoever comes in for Manchester United next, my big fear is that fundamentally there's a number of players that I can list here. Rashford always gets mentioned. Bruno, Casemiro, those three players Martinez missed most of the season. He's only just coming back. There's a lot of new signings. There's been a lot of inconsistent performances from players. Whoever the new manager is going to face the same problem that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ten Hag, Mourinho, Van Gaal faced. Different players, obviously across those eras. But Man United have got a fundamental problem with players who are not consistent and don't seem to be able to play a certain style of football that Villa and Spurs and everyone else can do. It's all right changing the manager, but we've never seen a consistently decent style of football from Man United in 10 years. And you've got Bruno Fernandes coming out saying, we're sad about the manager, remember the good times. Can Bruno Fernandes play in a team like Spurs? Can he play in a team like Villa? Can he play in a team sustainably, consistently good style of football? And that's the question mark I would say about Manchester United is, as we move forward, Will, with the next manager, you've got to ask quite simply, can a manager get a tune out of these players, or are they actually one of the biggest problems? And on top of that, what do you do with Xerxes? What do you do with Onana? What do you do with Mason Mount? What do you do with these players that Man United have spent a lot of money for with Erik ten Hag that aren't obviously going to be players that a Xavi or a Southgate or whoever are going to go in and go, yeah, they're very distinctive Ten Hag players, that Man United are going to have to use. And this has been one of the problems for a long time. Solskjaer, Mourinho, Van Gaal, Ten Hag, you inherit players that you know you've got to use that you never bought.
Yeah, but that's part of a manager's job, isn't it? Like, you know,
Emery did it well.
Yeah, exactly. Emery did it well, and I think these players, especially the younger ones, the ones probably like 26 and under, have the grounding and the foundation to be coached and improved. And you know, we speak so much about those top four managers with Pep, with what Jurgen Klopp did, what Arne Slot's doing now, with what Emery's doing. They improve players. Eric Ten Hag, for whatever reason, I mean, it didn't work with his transfers. It didn't work with the players that he had. And I think the most interesting thing is we'll come from two different perspectives. Is what INEOS do next, because this is their first appointment, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is their chance. Which needs to happen, and obviously they're trying to wait for it to be a better time. But you know, you have to sort of park what they did with Eric Ten Hag and the contract and trying to find a manager in the summer, and that didn't work. But this next appointment is key, because we spoke at the end of last year when INEOS came in. Obviously, there was a bit of a groundswell and obviously positivity around that. But what they do next is key, because I think the managerial appointment, and I joke about Southgate and you look at the Potter, but that is the area of manager that I think that you need to be looking at, because this is a rebuild job. And if they get that manager, it almost goes back to the point that we said of like the next 3 years is a rebuild job. Like, hopefully we are building on each performance, but like that needs to be key from the manager.
Oliver Hunt makes a great point, one of our members as well. Well, someone was going to get the sack this weekend. It was Ten Hag, Glasner or Lopetegui, and obviously Palace and West Ham won, and it had to be Ten Hag. I tell you what, we've got a big beer keg here, and I'm so angry I'm going to be like the Incredible Hulk, because somebody has just put out there that Solskjaer might be coming back. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to fucking throw it through the fucking camera. There ain't no way. And that's full of beer.
What's that? That's Madry, then.
That's Madry as well. I'll tell you what, if they go anywhere near Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I am INEOS out. That is
either or.
That is absolutely
either or, Solskjaer or Southgate.
I'm Southgate. I'm INEOS out regardless. You can't do that. I mean, that will get every rival fan absolutely ecstatically happy. You cannot go anywhere near Solskjaer or Southgate for mates rates. The worst thing about this Man United squad is it is spoilt and inconsistent. You don't go and get Southgate and Ollie to get them on a fucking the inflatable day in the swimming pool. You know, that worked with England to a certain extent, but they didn't win anything. Man United do not need a manager that's going to put their arm around them. They need someone that's going to kick them up the arse and say, run around that field.
Yeah, but I'm not saying, but I do think Southgate would do a better job in the current circumstances. But
he's such a bad coach.
No, but every time what is the common denominator in everything that's happened since Sir Alex Ferguson's left? Like you were speaking about it on the stream then, Player FC.
Crap style of football.
No. Player FC. Like, they are controlling the dressing room. Everyone sees it the way that, you know, you said you'd love to sack players. The players are controlling and doing a bad job, but ultimately not being held responsible for it. Gareth Southgate is the ultimate sort of... No, he's not a twat. He's
favourites, shit style of football. It's fitting perfectly.
He's the ultimate puppeteer in terms of being able to manage a squad and get the best out of people.
Yeah, where they go next will be very interesting. I think they've made a very quick, efficient statement. I think there are a lot of United fans that have been in disagreement about what would happen with Ten Hag, but ultimately I think there's a sense of relief. We need to move on. The story changes now, and what they need to do, I hate to say it, but they need to do something that's popularist. They need to go.
But what is that though?
Well, but the media is so toxic. The media is so toxic. Our fan base is so toxic. They need to make an appointment where everyone goes, "Ooh, you know what?" And it might not work, but
but who's that?
The one thing we don't have at United is patience, and the one thing we absolutely need is patience. This is the hardest Man United job in history, because it's 10 years of accumulating projects, and with every new manager you accumulate someone else's project. So yeah. I think you've got to go and get somebody that everyone goes, wow, that's really interesting. Now,
who's that?
What's a wow factor? We've already said Zidane's not going to go anywhere near it.
No.
Nagelsmann would be interesting, but if you go and get a Thomas Frank or an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, or dare I say a Potter, straight away, people are there's already going to be detractors. And as soon as you've got that,
but why is Frank I think Thomas Frank, not the perfect choice, but I think for where you are, he could be a good appointment and an interesting one.
I like Thomas Frank, but the minute you have your arse handed on a plate at Anfield, people will go, the job's too big for him. Like there's no patience in the fan base.
But that's saying that's going to happen. You don't know that that's going to happen with the Thomas Frank. I don't think he's the right man for the job. The tricky situation is what's the expectations? Like that's what I think needs to be defined publicly.
Well, you're at the bottom of the mountain now.
Well, maybe.
But it's not the new manager's fault. What I'm saying is the new manager has to be given patience. There is no patience in the fan base.
Yeah.
So that's the problem, I think, for me. If we'll support Southgate, then what is his opinion on Southgate benching Cole Palmer in the Euros? We're not going back to the Euros, Ollie, but got Cole Palmer we'll be talking about in a minute. What an amazing assist.
Chippy chips.
Look, we're here to talk about the weekend as well. It'd be very interesting to follow what happens with Manchester United. But the headline was going to be VAR disgrace. Give me your thoughts on Michael Oliver and the penalty for West Ham. We haven't scripted this. It's been too busy. Your job depends on what you're going to say next.
Mark, can I shock you?
Yeah.
I actually agree with you. I watched it back. I didn't think it was a pen. And then, I mean, we look at the way the certain words come out from the PGMOL about clear and obvious. I mean, that is definitely not clear and obvious. I worry about the sort of organisation going forward, just because, you've got Michael Oliver in the VAR room sort of as a bit of an overlord, but over poor David Coote, who, I mean, he looks like he's scared at the best of times. So if you've got Michael Oliver in your ear going, listen here, mate, that's definitely a penalty and you'll turn it over. Look 8 times. And eventually he did. They got the penalty. And yeah, I think it's a real sad day for VAR, because clear and obvious should be clear and obvious, and that was clear and obviously not a penalty, but it wasn't clear and obvious to the right people.
I think it's disgusting. I think we've spoken about it so many times on this podcast, and I would implore anybody to share the view and get angry, because that's coming to a club near you. It's a shame it happened in a Man United game, which ultimately led Ten Hag to the sack, because I think if this had happened in the Liverpool-Arsenal game, it probably gets more focus, because it's such a big thing. But because Man United have sacked their manager, and because everyone's going to talk about
towards
that,
it, aren't you?
Yeah, but I looking at it, I just couldn't believe it at the time, and I still can't believe it now. And I just want to say, I'm not here saying that somebody's taking bungs or they're corrupt, but I do think we're going to get to a point with referees in this country at some point where there is going to be a scandal, because I think the decisions that are being made are absolutely incredible. There's a brilliant episode of Inside Number 9 actually, where it's
your new favourite show, isn't it?
Where they're where the referee and 2 linesmen are in this dressing room, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. But when you look at Michael Oliver, first of all, we already know there's a big massive list of things that he's done that don't make sense. Even last season at Old Trafford in the Manchester derby, Anthony Taylor doesn't give a penalty for Rasmus and Rodri, a little bit of a slight touch on him, and Michael Oliver goes, you might want to have a look at this, and a penalty gets given, and we see it all the time, and it never gets given, but it gets given. You then look at Michael Oliver at Anfield against Manchester City and Liverpool in the last minute when Doku kicks Alexi McAllister in the chest, and he's there going, we've heard the audio, not enough for me. Like VAR.
Was he the one who gave the 3 yellows to Delo really quickly as well?
Yeah. So he's got a massive history of bad decisions. But we've heard the audio at Anfield of Michael Oliver in that last minute when Doku kicks McAllister, and we've heard the audio, and he is basically saying to VAR before they're even reviewing it, not for me, not enough contact, not for me. And yet he's the guy on VAR yesterday saying, you might want to look at this, looks like a penalty. I mean,
the audio is going to be good on that.
But that's the same referee who says a kick to the chest is not enough contact for a penalty, who is saying a collision is clear and obvious. And that is not what VAR is for. So anybody who thinks it was a penalty, and I will say fair play to West Ham, look, it's gone in your favour, it's not your fault. But why that's not a penalty is because on the pitch, the referee is not given it. And Howard Webb has said we want to empower referees. So unless it's clear and obvious, we don't get involved. So that's not a penalty. No one thinks it's a penalty. And then Michael Oliver says, I think this is a penalty. You need to come and look at it. The referee comes and looks at it, and he's like, almost like, what am I looking at? Can I have a look at it again and again and again and again? And then I think he bottles it because Michael Oliver's senior to him.
But I think that's the worry going forward. There's like a real hierarchy at the Referees Association, and then topped off by Howard Webb, where I think a lot of people have been speaking about it online. We spoke about on here. It's a very dangerous precedent that he's becoming this sort of personality. Now you think the PGMO as he's
almost like the godfather of referees.
Well, it is, and they've probably got a communication strategy where they're thinking, right, let's have a face for it, which I do understand. happened. But like, I think there's a time and a place for that. And then if you're rubbing shoulders with the likes of people on Neville's podcast, and then we probably had the worst 2 weeks of the season off the back of it. Plus the fact that you've got like Oliver, Anthony Taylor. You know, Mike Dean's comments at the start of last season, I don't think get enough attention on, that he would sort of be like looking out for a mate in the VAR room. I don't think we should go on about it for another 45 minutes like we did last time. But like, fundamentally, I want to hear the audio from that of how Oliver speaks to David Cooke, because I think going forward, that's very fundamental.
Look, fundamentally, I'm absolutely happy to say it to camera. I think Michael Oliver is an absolute disgrace and should be kicked out of professional refereeing. I think there is a massive list of decisions that are absolutely not corrupt, not dodgy, just pure and simple incompetence that do not follow the guidelines, where he consistently contradicts himself and consistently ruins games of football and should not be doing the job. His name is now associated with complete and utter incompetence, and Howard Webb and the PGMOL should not be protecting him anymore. Some journalists should write an article on that particular referee, going through all his decisions and going where they're not being given, how he gives it in one game and not the other. And unfortunately, it keeps happening to Manchester United as well. And it doesn't happen to Man City. This is a referee that consistently gives decisions that Man City benefit from and consistently gives decisions that Man United suffer from. It's not acceptable. And we can all laugh about it because it's all banter and rivalry. But the guy is an absolute incompetent official who has completely and utterly contradicted himself on decisions that are very, very similar time and time again. And then you take it into the Arsenal game yesterday. In fairness, look, that is not a penalty. I wish that had happened between Liverpool and Arsenal, because I still would say 100% terrible. But you know when Martinelli went down from Canate?
Yeah.
That's more of a penalty than the West Ham one. But it's not a penalty.
No.
And that's what I mean.
But that was good. That was quick, efficient. Yeah, like the referee didn't give it, and it wasn't clear and obvious to overturn.
And I think the Van Dijk kick off the ball, I understand what Arsenal fans are staying, because you look at it, there's no ball and he's giving him a boot.
Yeah.
I don't want a red card for that either, because it ruins the game. I don't think there was any decision, and obviously the Arsenal goal where
Villa handball. Did you think that was a handball? I actually didn't, and not clear and obvious enough to turn over. Bailey at the back of the box.
I thought the Bournemouth penalty was a penalty against Villa.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Where he handballs it.
No, where he took him out.
Oh, I can't remember. I don't know if
it took him out. That was a penalty. But that's what I mean. The inconsistency is always going to be there. But you know what? I also think as well, we'll go back to Man United and Arsenal and everyone else. But you sent me that thing about football, that screenshot about football.
Right, yeah.
And I saw a clip last week of Man United and Arsenal, right? And Vieira and Keane go together at Highbury, and Keane sort of kicks out of Vieira, and then Vieira goes for Keane and sort of puts his head on his. Then Jaap Stam comes in and does that. And it's just an amazing rivalry, 30 seconds, where the referee just says, calm the fuck down and get on with it. In the modern game, Stam, Vieira and Keane probably get banned for 10 games. And I just thought, you know what? Football has become a bloody pantomime. A farce where the fans just suffer and the game dilutes itself. I mean, we're not going to walk away from it because we love it, but you'd never get that sort of Keane, Vieira, Jaap Stam run-in moment now where a referee just goes, calm the fuck down and get on with it. There'd be 10 match bans and 3 red cards. And then you look at that VAR moment yesterday and the multiple ones we see week in, week out, and we just sort of like, nothing's going to change. Howard Webb will be on bloody Lineker's podcast next, having a dunking his bourbons in a cup of tea. It actually has, I think, football.
Have you ever tried that, actually, dunking
well, it's
a biscuit?
A novel idea. I mean, I'm sort of thinking, how would that work, dipping a tea in biscuits? But no, I think football has become pantomime. I think it's almost become, we watch this and we're going, they're the villain.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do about it. The actual fundamentals of... I mean, I watched Blues Wrexham with you a few weeks ago. I watched Charlton against Wrexham on Saturday afternoon. If you want to watch proper football, go and watch it outside the Premier League. Because when they gave that last-minute penalty to Charlton, I was like saying to myself, there's no VAR. There's no VAR.
No,
it is going to be a penalty.
Yeah.
And when the ball goes in, you're like, there's no VAR. He's given it. And that is just so good. The purity of football. We've lost it. And the inconsistency just... I understand Arsenal fans yesterday saying, why wasn't it a penalty on Martinelli then if it's one in the West Ham game? I understand why they're saying, why is Van Dijk not getting sent off when Kudos did for pushing someone in the face? But it's the inconsistent... Football's become pantomime, and Howard Webb presides over that like bloody Mother Goose. excuse.
And I think fundamentally, like, it goes without saying, football has become a business, but at the detriment to the people that, you know, are the people who they're supposed to be supplying. Like, fans are literally the bottom of the list of all of it. Like, the product is absolutely awful in the stadium from a VAR perspective, you know, in terms of the way possession-based football gets chatted about. Like, I saw Pep Guardiola's comments about Southampton. He was like, oh, they're one of the best teams in the league. I'm like, they're not one of the best teams in the league. They're bottom, but you just like their style, so you can give them a little pat on the back and sort of crack on with it again. I just feel like fundamentally the product is going one way. The amount of games, you know, last week there was a game on every week that technically you probably should have had to watch, and some of it's utter crap. The way the Champions League's going now, just like they're trying to force feed these like massive games. Like, fundamentally, fans get thought about last, and like that shouldn't be the way. So they've just got us by the balls, haven't they? Like, they know that we'll come back and keep watching it. You know, the FIFA Club World Cup, we said, oh, I guarantee when it comes to June, July, we'll have it on in the background. So they've just got us round the short and curlies, and we don't know what to do with ourselves.
I genuinely think that we've said it so many times, it's not the technology at fault, it's the people running it.
Yeah.
But VAR, football would be better in the Premier League without VAR. It would. And also, can I just say on the goal that Arsenal scored yesterday, let's talk about Arsenal-Liverpool for a moment. We will come back to the Ten Hag stuff. Obviously, he's still been sacked. But the point I was going to make is that, you know, on the Arsenal goal, I would have no confidence if I was a Liverpool fan that was actually offside. Like, the amount of time they take and the technology they use. No, the goal that Marino scored.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I presume it was onside because that's what they say. But how long they take to do it? We were told 8 months ago that we were getting the technology that's been used in the Champions League for about 100 years. Yeah. And it was meant to come in after the international break, and we've had 2 and it's still not there. And I'm like, this is the Premier League, and we're still using rulers and Nokia 3210s to measure the offsides. It's like, it's incredible to me just how shit the product and we've said it last year. Like, the officiating last year was abysmal. And this season, we've already had the Liverpool offside goal represented yesterday by Michael Oliver by getting involved in something. Nothing's improving. No, and I think that's the thing. And as an organisation, they need to be held accountable a lot more for what they are, because I think they can go, you know, do a bit of positive PR and it changes, but it doesn't. But the game itself, I mean, in terms of the product on the pitch, I thought it was a really good game. Yeah. Saka, I thought, turned into another level. We'll get onto that as well. But ultimately, a sad day for the title race. Maybe a moment of silence for the title race, because it feels like that could be over. A game of two halves. I mean, I think so many people thought that Liverpool were going to win that game. And Arteta and Arsenal showed their durability. I thought in the first half they were very, very good and went on the front foot. I think that obviously was massively boosted by Saka with a great goal early on, and he clearly was match fit, which was a big boost for Arsenal. I just feel my overarching thing for that game was that Arsenal definitely were very good in the first half, and we had 3 good goals. And Liverpool were very, very quiet on the attack. And then second half, it was attack against defence. And I know they lost Gabriel, but I just felt that Arsenal just went too defensive too soon, and it was inevitable that Liverpool would get the goal. And I generally felt like they'd had a red card. Yeah, like, I think Carragher said it in the thing. I was thinking exactly the same thing. Like they dropped so deep, and I get that they, defensively, like, their options have been completely, blown apart by what happened with Saliba and Gabriel. But like, to compete against Manchester City, the squad needs to be at a level where you can't be having those excuses and like dropping so deep. Like, their mentality was like, I felt they were 2-1 up at home. Like, zoom out. Yeah. Like, that's where they were. And I think fundamentally, like, people go, oh, it's not a bad result. But like, when you compare it, they're just having so many draws as well, aren't they? Yeah. And I think that I don't think Liverpool were particularly good. I mean, I do wonder how much of it was down to, we've seen already in Slot's short reign how quickly, I remember the opening game against Ipswich, they weren't very good first half, and then tactically just changed it up and they dominated them second half. So it was a poor Liverpool side. I'm sure there was tactical changes at half time for Liverpool because Salah was in the game a lot more, but I do think Arsenal definitely contributed to it. There were time wasting quite early in the half, and it was almost like they set their stall out to rely on the defence to see the game out. And I think at home 2-1 against Liverpool, they could have been a little bit more adventurous. And funnily enough, at 2-2 they did get more adventurous, and not like they looked like they were going to score, but they were. I think it was a conscious decision to go defensive in the second half, and in which case they really lost the opportunity to get what would have been a big win, because I think 5 points off Man City and 4 points off Liverpool is going to make it very difficult for them to get back in a title race.
We're coming up to a quarter way of the season. Let's look at Arsenal specifically, because I was going to say who was the result more positive for yesterday, but I think we've sort of answered that. But like Arsenal in these first 9 games of the season, how many it is, I just think again we've got more questions than answers, and I think Roy Keane was alluding to mentality wise, like if they're trying to challenge Manchester City like yesterday, that just worries me.
Yeah, I think with Arsenal, that they're a very easy club to attack, and I've always been very, positive towards them and Arteta, because I think he's done a fantastic job from where they were. But I have also said that what they've done over the last 2 years has, however you dress it up, been remarkable and overachieving, because their squad isn't actually as good as a Chelsea or even a Liverpool, certainly not a Man City. Odegaard's been out for a long time. Like, that's a big loss. Saka's obviously had injuries. Saliba wasn't playing yesterday. Gabriel's now injured. I think they're very reliant on 3 or 4 players. Declan Rice would be another one. So I'm not surprised. I mean, look, they're still going to be in and about there, but it's not like Man City can do without Rodri for a whole season. They can do without De Bruyne. Yeah. They just don't have that squad. I still think they're a very good team, but I still feel like Arsenal are punching, whereas Liverpool and Manchester City, I think they've just got more know-how and experience.
Yeah,
and they might have fell off a little bit, Liverpool, for the last couple of years, but they still have Van Dijk and Salah and Trent and Robertson and Alisson. Whereas Arsenal, they don't have that know-how and they don't have that experience. And I still think they're a really good team. I don't think there's anything bad about Arsenal being in third if that's where they end up this year. But I think the expectation is still probably a little bit too much for them to achieve it. And I think the media do overplay that a bit. I still think Arsenal are punching and doing really, really well.
No, but they finished, second in the table last season, and like it felt this year would be the next step. Like in terms of the recruitment, maybe like the depth in terms of that needs to be looked at. But I feel like definitely even next season they should be in a better place. But ultimately, Arsenal need their 11 to be absolutely firing. Where you look at yesterday, Mo Salah didn't have his best game, walks away with a goal, and it finishes 2-2 away from home, which they'll definitely be positive about.
Plenty of people tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. Bottom right-hand corner, get involved with That's Football. Look, let's go back to the not Solskjaer thing.
Oh, God, he's back. He's here.
No, we're not going back to Solskjaer.
Solskjaer, you're the one.
We're not going back to that.
Wow, Alcott's just tweeted a picture of Southgate in a Man United shirt.
Jesus.
High-pressure job with an environment that needs a culture shift, you say. There can only be one man.
If I wanted the opinion of a QPR fan about Manchester United, I'd go to Loftus Road.
Wow. Don't be judgmental to EFL fans.
No, not. I'm telling Alcott to keep his Southgate shit in his mouth and swallow it.
I'll do that, Jim. I'll keep it going. What was I going to say?
I'm not saying he'd like Southgate to shit in his mouth, by the way. I don't want that to be said.
We're going down a weird rabbit hole. Who knows where it would lead to? Trent, do you want to stick with Arsenal?
Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, like, he did an interview in the week basically saying that he wants to win the Ballon d'Or as a right back and sort of be, the first to do it and set a precedent.
He had a really bad game yesterday.
I saw you tweeted
it. And then the pass was but that's it.
That's Liverpool, though,
temporary,
isn't it? Yeah.
Class is permanent. And like if he'd have had a really bad game and then in the 96th minute a free kick had been in his area, you'd still say the technique might put that in the top corner. But you know what? Just on Liverpool, I think that's a good point for them. I think if you said to them, point at the Emirates, you'd take that any season. That's not going to be if Liverpool don't win the league to Man City, it won't be because they drew at the Emirates. It'll be because they lost to Forest or something like that. Yeah. Like a point at the Emirates is a very good result for them. I think when you look at the game, Liverpool will treat that point more as a win. And I think Arsenal will treat that point more as a loss.
Yeah, and let's focus on the positive. I thought Bukayo Saka yesterday was absolutely brilliant. Just like so lively, so energetic. There were obviously rumours about him not even playing, but that first goal, the way he took it to Andy Robertson, who's been one of the left backs not only in the league but in Europe over the last couple of seasons, inside out. I just think it's really exciting. And then you do look over the other side of the field. Mo Salah not having his best game, but maybe not having his best season, and it just feels like, the way Bukayo Saka's going, he can definitely get to that level. They spoke a lot about Arteta being negative the dark arts being involved.
Carragher likened him to Mourinho, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, it made me sort of step back a little bit as well, because, they were talking about Arteta coming from the Pep style of football. But I think it's a broader point. You look at Nottingham Forest up in 5th, 6th in the table now. Like, there has to be an antidote to what, like, no one's going to play Pep ball better than Pep.
No.
Especially with the resources that he's got. So there has to be an antidote to that. And if Arteta's one is being more defensive, trying to shore everything up and being like that, I haven't got a problem with it. And I think as a general media and fans and output, like, West Ham fans getting Lopetegui because we want better football. What does that actually mean? Like, for me, I want results, trophies, and progression.
I also think that it can't work every time. If you think about Arsenal at the Etihad playing with 10 men for 45 minutes, you didn't get beat. If you think about Arsenal going to Spurs and defending and winning 1-0, that could have been 2-1 to Spurs. Yesterday, you defended for 45 minutes, you didn't get the win. The trouble with that style of football is it's not always going to work, is it? So,
No.
but look, I think Arsenal this season are not going to be in the title race. That doesn't mean they're having a bad season. I think for Arsenal fans it will be, because they've been in a title race for 2 years. But I just think that this year, they've never really had the injuries as well. I remember saying this last year. They don't. The great thing about Arsenal is they don't really pick up injuries. Whereas this year already they've had a lot of red cards. They've had a number of injuries. We don't know how long Gabriel's going to be out for either. I mean, they do have cover in that position. That's why they've brought Calafiori. They've got Timber, who also looked like he had a problem as well. But I just think that there was never any guarantee that Arsenal would be there to take over from Man City. If there is ever going to be an opportunity to take over from Man City, maybe they've just had their 2 years where they were close to the title, and now they're going to drift off into 3rd or 4th. It's still top 4 in a very competitive league, and Arsenal do not have the resources of a Manchester City, and they don't have a squad of a Manchester City. So, look, it's disappointing for Arsenal. I would want them to win the league out of them, Liverpool and Man City. Of course I would, but there is a realism to what the case is, and I think Liverpool have got a better squad. I think Man City have got a better squad, and I think Arsenal have had a bit of bad luck this season with injuries and suspensions. And look, maybe they can get back into it, but my issue is Man City have just played shit for 3 games and got 9 points.
Yeah, but my theory on that is that, Manchester City have played the work. Like, normally Manchester, they beat Wolves and Southampton on aggregate 3-1. Like, that's not Manchester City-esque in terms of their high standards. When Erling Haaland scored that opening goal, I saw you tweeting, I had him as triple captain. I thought, here we go, the bus is going to be rolling all day. But that stopped, and I do think there's a chance to get at Manchester City, and they've got tougher fixtures coming up, and I don't think we can base their title race off the back of, like, I know everything that's happened before, but I really think that the season's not over yet. And I think, Arne Slot, I've been so impressed with him, like, coming out in the post-match press conference, he was saying that people were saying that we've had an easy start. Well, they were the same people that was telling me when I came to the Premier League that there's no easy game, so you can't have it both ways. I think he's a really good manager in terms of, like, we speak about bold Dutch managers. Erik ten Hag in the press, it didn't work, did it? But with Arne Slot, he sort of, tactics, game management on point so far from what we've seen, and in terms of media, on point as well.
Yeah, just going back to Ten Hag there, somebody in the chat did just say, what do you think his legacy will be? Interesting that. 2 trophies in 2 years, sacked. It seems to be a common theme. I can't remember where Solskjaer finished the season before he got sacked. Maybe it was second. Mourinho finished second and was sacked by Christmas. So your previous success doesn't Mourinho got sacked by Chelsea by Christmas and he just won the league. Yeah. So there is no living off past successes. I look at when Mourinho left United, everyone was a Mourinho out, but then in time, people realised there was player power going on there, and it's been kind on Mourinho. It will be kind to Ten Hag if United continue to fail. If Man United kick on and have a period of sustained success and good footballing style, then the Ten Hag decision will be the right one. I mean, what I will concede, Will, is that just because it feels right now doesn't mean it's right in a year's time.
No, you said about Mourinho, doesn't it? Like, I mean, he was speaking about, he still might get a medal for Manchester City charges come through. So I just think there needs to be some acknowledgement of where Manchester United are now. And it comes back to, I think Adam Crafton was doing an 11 of Manchester United ex-players that have actually worked or been part of the coaching staff since Sir Alex Ferguson left. And I think there needs to be a bit, and maybe INEOS are doing it with Sir Alex Ferguson, there needs to be a bit of a line drawn. Like, you had one of the greatest, if not the greatest period in time of football if you're a Manchester United fan. But that ain't ever going to happen again, just because of the competitive nature of the Premier League and everything that's around. You look at the media, or like it'd be Neville, Ferdinand, you know, they're in every single sort of slot. Manchester United players there, so there needs to be an understanding, and INEOS need to dictate this, that we are rebuilding to a future that might not be as good as it has been under Fergie, but that is unsustainable. So I think this appointment has to be key.
I think there's something to be said as well, and maybe for the first time, is that when you look at success and periods of success, I can't think of one where a club has been successful with ex-players sat in the media. And I remember growing up watching Match of the Day, and you'd have Lawrenson and Hansen from Liverpool, who were very successful, sat there talking about, oh, this Liverpool side, and Liverpool were absolutely shit. And we've had it again over the last few years with Scholes and Keane and Neville and Rio going, oh, this is absolutely shit, and Man United are shit. I do wonder that if you're going to take that job, it's not going to just be about coaching, it's also going to be about personality, because you've got that to deal with. And that pressure of harking back to the past, which we saw with Hansen and Lawrenson with Liverpool, and Liverpool failed through that era, and Man United are doing it now, it doesn't do anybody any favours to be constantly turning the TV on and reminded of, oh, just remember how good Man United were. We're not going to go back. Liverpool built their modern success on a guy that was from, you know, Germany and didn't acknowledge the press. And I think that, but you've got to have the balls and the personality to do that.
He did have the press, though. I
think Ten Hag was, looking back on it, not great with the media.
No.
And I don't think his personality, maybe language barrier, whatever. I don't think it was language barrier. I just think he was. I just think he wanted to coach. I don't think he wanted to do the media.
Yeah. There's so much media.
But at Man United, you've got to do the media. You've got to do both. Which is why I think someone like Ange, funnily enough, another loss for. I mean, Spurs are only what, 2 points ahead of Man United?
Yeah, I just found
that
was a banker at the weekend,
and
wasn't
that's
it?
Incredible. I told you. Crystal Palace is a hard place to go.
Finally, it's come true.
Yeah, again, it's come true. But, you know, but to be fair, Liverpool only won 1-0 there. We drew there, and then they beat Spurs, which I didn't expect. But Spurs is such an interesting one. I mean,
I feel like Ange is being dragged in. 2
points better than Man United.
Yeah, I feel like Big Ange is being dragged into the Spurs ways, because, you know, he came out a couple of weeks ago saying, you know, look, mate, second season at Celtic, we won. Yokohama, we won. And now he's like, did you see the post-match press conference? No. I actually thought he was going to nut the journalist. He was like,
probably would.
I didn't say that, mate. Did I say that? And he was like, and I like that though, because, you know, he doesn't want to be in that position. And famously, the best managers aren't the best losers, are they? Like Sir Alex Ferguson, absolute bastard coming out. You only have to see Pep lose, and he's all over the place. But
the funny thing is, I'd take Ange at Man United now.
Yeah.
And yet there's probably Spurs fans in this chat saying, I'm not sure whether he's the right guy.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I'd take Ange at United now, because style of football's good, and he doesn't take any shit. Now, look, whether he'd be successful or not, I don't know. Stevie J says, as a Liverpool fan, I'd love Southgate at United, but INEOS aren't that stupid. But no, just on Spurs, I've got to say, I don't really understand what's going on. I think we're starting to get to a point now, when you look at the table, where if there's going to be 5 Champions League spots, or whether there's going to be 4, I think the race for top 5 is clearly going to be Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and probably Villa, Chelsea. I don't think anyone else is going to get in there. I mean, fair play to Forest and Brighton and Fulham, but are Spurs already fucking that up? I mean, they're dropping silly points. And with all due respect to Palace, somebody's already said it, this weekend was probably going to result with someone getting the sack. And Lopetegui, Ten Hag and Glasner were the 3. Palace and West Ham win, Man United lose, and Ten Hag loses his job. But I don't understand how Spurs are dropping these points.
Yeah, no, and it just feel, you know, they had a 6 or 7 sort of back-to-back wins, and then it just feels like, I feel like Big Ange has been dragged down into the Spursy way, because it felt like this was a new dawn and a new era, and I still think it is. Like, we can't be judging it on the Crystal Palace result.
But they're never going to be consistent, are they? I think if you're a Spurs fan,
but I think at that level,
the style of football, it's good, but
you're never going to be.
Palace deserved to win. It wasn't.
Palace aside, unless you're Man City, Arsenal, maybe Liverpool, I don't think that level of consistency is never really going to be there. Because,
but they're nowhere near top 5. They've got to be in that race.
No, I know, yeah. And, you know, with Villa dropping points, the one for Villa is, like, this is the second time after playing a Champions League game that they've dropped points at home. Obviously, they should have beat United from where United are now. You know, they should be beating...
They never look like it, though.
They should be beating Bournemouth as well. So that would be interesting to see how that goes on. Newcastle, again, no winning 5 for Eddie Howe.
I just want to say, I was at Charlton on Saturday. You can watch the watch along on here. Great stream. But I was doing so. I don't know whether they put it up yet with Goal, and they were doing these look like, winner stays on and all this shit. And they asked me who's the best player in the Premier League at the moment. And I said Cole Palmer before Chelsea played. This was on Saturday. And the guy holding the mic was like, what? Why not saying Salah or anything like that? Because we just said who's the best player in the Premier League at the moment. Yeah. There's two distinctive things there, isn't there?
There's a legacy.
Who's the best player in the Premier League at the moment? And then there's who's the best player in the Premier League. At the moment is about form. Look, if you could say Rodri is, but he's not the best player at the moment because he's injured, is he? So I think that Cole Palmer at the moment is the best player in the Premier League. And if you look at that first goal, I didn't see the pass. I saw what Neto did. And I went, brilliant work by Neto. Great finish. Then I saw the Cole Palmer pass and I was like, oh my Christ. I mean, that is, people say, he's all about penalties or little flicks. That pass is just an unbelievably weighted pass. And I just think he's absolutely remarkable at the moment. And Chelsea, look, you come into Man United on Sunday, we've got a new manager. That's probably a massive disappointment because Gary Neville was saying maybe Ten Hag's got Chelsea. If he loses that, he's gone. He's gone already. But I would have thought Chelsea would have won that anyway quite comfortably. We'll never know now. But obviously, new manager bounce or whatever, I think that becomes a more difficult game for Chelsea.
But then look at Chelsea.
They're right in it, though. They're right in it.
They're right. Like, I would say Chelsea are probably favourites for the top four, just in the way they're dealing with Europe, which I don't think is sustainable in terms of having the squad that they've got on a
but
Thursday
you could probably
night.
Win the Conference League with
no one
your
playing.
Reserves.
Yeah. I mean, Kieran Dewsbury Hall signed for Chelsea
to play in the Conference League.
Yeah,
he's loving it.
Yeah, I mean, they literally have two different teams, which I think we'll get into the finances.
Is there anybody Noel in the Conference League that's actually any good apart from Chelsea? I mean,
TNS,
Fiorentina.
Didn't you say we went down to
Fiorentina maybe are in it.
Astana look good. Yeah.
You don't. They don't.
But that's why.
They don't need to win it because winning it is.
That's a trophy for West Ham, isn't it? Like if Blues ever got in it and we won it, you wouldn't hear the end of it.
You don't need to be in it, so you may as well use it for your reserves. But they're not really in Europe, Chelsea.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's what it feels like because they didn't have Europe originally, didn't they? And then it all turned around. So we were saying the year they won the Premier League was it the season before they'd finished 10th or 11th or whatever it was. So. I find it interesting. I think with Villa dropping points, the way Champions League, obviously they're flying high in the Champions League. Like we keep saying as well, it is probably going to be a top 5, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think looking at it at the start of the season, hoping that Man United would be better than they are, you'd put them in the race, Newcastle in the race, Spurs in the race, and that top 5 is a top 8. But the way it's looking at the moment, Spurs are drifting, Newcastle are struggling, Man United have just changed their manager. So the top 5 at the moment for me is Villa and Chelsea for 4th place, and unless Spurs can find some consistency, because Newcastle, I don't get what that project is.
Yeah, no winning 5 over the last one.
They got Arsenal next.
I felt Chelsea Newcastle at the start of the season. For me, that would have been a clear Newcastle win. But even going into Sunday, I just was like, I put Chelsea on my bet. I thought that they were going to win. I just thought it was, and you have to look back. Obviously we're tying this all back to Ten Hag. Like the way Maresca's come in and just been brilliant with everything. Like. That and he is what we said for the ownership, their head coach. They're probably puppeteering a little bit, but he came from Leicester and is doing the job that he is doing. That's what Manchester United need to be looking at.
I was just about to say that. I think I wasn't impressed with Maresca for Chelsea. I'd never really seen what he was about at Leicester, but doing the TalkSport call-in show, we used to get a few Leicester fans calling in, and although they got promoted, they really were quite frustrated.
I found that crazy.
Yeah. I don't really get what that was all about. But you look at Chelsea. I mean, what's working for them is they were crying out for a bit of what Maresca's done really well, and Man United need this, is that not only has he come in and said, this is how we're going to play, and given them a definitive style of play that the players have responded to, he's also come in and said, Chilwell, Sterling, Gallagher, you're not playing.
Yeah.
And that would be like going into Man United and going, Bruno, Rashford, Casemiro, you're not playing, and we're going to play this style of football. Now, I don't know whether you can do that at United, and I'm not saying it should be those 3 players, but he's gone in there and been back to the hilt. He's made big calls, and they've got a style of play, and the players have responded to it. And I think sometimes players actually just want to trust the system and be told what to do, and that's what's working really well for Chelsea. But it was a really interesting weekend as well. I mean, the amount of late goals was just incredible.
I know, even the Everton's Beto coming on, getting one against Fulham in the last minute.
Bournemouth at Villa. Yeah. Wolves 2-0 down in the 88th
my God.
minute.
Have you watched the highlights on that? Oh my God. Wolves 2-1. They've scored late on anyway to make it 2-1. Brighton on a 4-on-1 counter-attack.
Oh, I heard about the 4-on-1. I didn't see it.
And I'm not. It must be the worst. If Cole Palmer's is the best pass of the season, this is the worst pass of the season. It's gone straight to Villa, straight to a Wolves player. They've gone up the other end. They've scored. I mean, if you were Hertzler, you'd actually be pulling your. I mean, he's got.
There was just so many late goals this weekend. It was incredible. And shout out to Brentford as well. I mean, how many goals? 7, 8 at the last one. I mean, Ipswich 2-0 up as well, and then 10 men, they get back to 3-3, and then they still lose in the stoppage time as well.
Was it the lad who was making his first game? I think he gave away the penalty, scored an own goal, and then got sent off. That's what we call the Jonathan Woodgate trio. It's not looking good for them. Obviously, Leicester lost on the Friday to a good Forest side, but again, like, the defending from all three sides. Ironically, Southampton's defending was probably the best it's ever been, even though Pep was giving them the tap on the head. Even I've started to worry. Especially Everton are just picking up those like points where you look at Everton 1, Fulham 1, and you go,
Everton were never going to go down.
And then it just keeps chugging on, doesn't
it?
The
3-up will go down. I'm absolutely convinced about it. Although at the moment, still got Wolves down there, aren't you? Palace.
Well, yeah, and after they nearly got a point against Manchester City, they've grinded.
Got some good fixtures coming up now.
If Man United players weren't playing for Ten Hag, Wolves players are definitely playing for Gary O'Neill, aren't they? Like, they're grinding out, they're putting in performances. So as much as I don't like them, you have to say that fair play that they have got a chance because of the level of performance.
Definitely. Chiri says, do you think Ruud van Nistelrooy will break from Ten Hag's favourites? I mean, look, that's something we'll have to wait and see. It's Carabao Cup week this week, isn't it? So I would make changes.
I found the Ruud appointment just really weird since the start. I think we spoke about it at the start of the season. Just like it felt like maybe he wouldn't put the knife in, but you literally sat there like a shark, ready to sort of pounce in the waters. He's gone.
I think it's such an easy. I remember Carrick doing it as well. I think he dropped Bruno.
Right,
when he came in. If you're in that role, the first thing you do is go, what do the fans want?
Yeah.
Get me on Twitter. Let's have a burner account and do a few polls. Who should start on the right wing? Should Agate start? Right, Agate, your captain. Ahmad, you're playing on the right. So I think Ahmad will start, and I think, but obviously, it's hard not to feel a bit excited when things change, but it won't be too long before Man United are back doing what they do. I mean, Man United are locked in a cycle. They're locked in a cycle. Every 2 years and a bit, a new manager will be sacked, and the old manager will be sacked, and a new manager will come in. And the problem that Man United have got now is that they've accumulated hundreds of millions of pounds of players that are Ten Hag players.
Yeah, but I don't think like Ten Hag these are players at the end of the day. They can be coached and they are malleable to that.
But what I'm saying is you can't bring a manager in that's going to go, right, I'm going to start Maguire and Evans and I'm going to start.
No, but I don't think anyone would do that. Like,
Southgate would.
I don't think he would.
He'd love to do it. He'd love to do that.
He'd make Maguire captain and put a statue outside. But I just feel like that's why. So if you want these top tier managers, that they're going to look at the squad and be like, well, I could work miracles, but I'm not with this shit. And then someone gets appointed like a Southgate or a Potter, and then it's like, well, we need to be aiming higher than this. So I think the cycle is actually done by fans as well, because like the answer to this is saying we are rebuilding, and we're not going to rebuild with a Zidane. We're not going to rebuild with a Xavi. It's rebuilding with a manager that is appropriate to. You're 14th in the table.
In fairness to INEOS, though, I suppose it sounds like I'm being pro INEOS, but actually I suppose I'm not. The minute that where this fundamentally went wrong is that after the FA Cup final,
you can't be putting a spin like that.
They can't do that for 2 weeks because all the media know you were thinking about getting rid of him.
Yeah.
All the fans,
he knows.
All the fans know. Ten Hag knows, and more importantly, the players know. That is a huge lesson for INEOS. Never, ever, ever, ever let it be public that you were thinking about getting rid of Ten Hag, and they did. And in fairness to them, he wasn't their guy, but you can't run a system like that. So the next guy's their guy. And that should protect him.
Yeah, and you say that, and like I know we keep joking about it, but like that's why I do feel that Southgate will be.
I think you've mentioned Southgate way too many times.
But he's third favourite for the job. It's not me having a laugh.
What with Odds Checker?
No, with Sky Bet.
Oh wow! Oh great!
All the bookies, he's up there. So it's not me like trying to poke the bear.
But you are trying to wind everybody up, and it's just not going to work.
That's not. If he was 10th favourite, I'd say I am.
But Man United have said numerous times
we spoke about
that it's a load of bollocks.
Who said that?
Man United have said it.
Who?
David Ornstein.
Well, he's not Man United.
Yeah, but he broke the sacking.
Yeah.
And just not wait. One moment has he ever said,
just wait, I'll be running.
Seriously about getting sacked. Mate, Man United fans, if you want Man United to have a bit of patience, you can't give the job to Southgate.
Have a little.
So, yeah, I'd be interested to see where they go next. I think Nagelsmann is going to be very, very difficult to get out of Germany. I think Xavi is very, very risky. I think Thomas Frank would be hard to get out of Brentford, and it's a big, big step forward.
Yeah. To be fair to you, that doesn't.
It's hard to know whether Amorim at Sporting Lisbon, but I think he's got a release clause.
And with Hugo Viana going in at Manchester City.
Yeah, go on.
With Hugo Viana going in at Manchester City, and the Pep's. It's not
Where
confirmed.
are you going? Where do you go?
It's a stupid question.
Come on.
But seriously. But where do you go?
It's not going to, going to happen. Everyone's just going to go, Will's a
All
twat.
right, I'd say Frank, Southgate or Potter.
I don't know where it's going to go, but my hunch is going to be Amorim, because you know why I think they'll do it?
Why?
Because one, he's a good coach, but also because they know Man City want him. But Man City can't do it because Pep's in role. So I think they'll go Amorim because they've got Barada, and they know Man City want Amorim. So I think that's where they'll go.
What about if Pep's doing a Klopp? Like, you know, that I think with that club that can be kept in to like 4 people knowing that Pep might be going. Like, it just feels weird. Viana's coming from Sporting. It feels like Amorim. It's been a long day.
Not Almiron.
Almiron is. It just feels like he nailed on for that.
Let us know in the chat what you think. Look, I've got absolutely no idea what they're going to do. But I think if you're asking me now, I would want Nagelsmann. But I think they'll try and go out for Amorim.
If you Nagelsmann,
but beyond those two, you start moving into territory of. And look, you've got to discount Zidane. That's just.
What do you feel about Thomas Tuchel now?
You know what? Honestly, I think you look at it timing-wise and you go, would I take Tuchel over what they could go for? Obviously, I would do, but I don't feel that Tuchel still, to me, epitomises what needs to happen next. Like, it needs to be longer term. It needs to be promotion of youth. It needs to be a manager that's not got their best interests at heart, but the interests of the club. Tuchel's not long-term, and he's quite spontaneous, isn't he?
Russell Martin, then.
But look, I genuinely think Nagelsmann's a really interesting one. Amorim's a really interesting one. But look, honestly, many people said this on the United stand. You will be back here doing this in 2.5 years. And I think there is nothing to suggest that won't happen, because if you're going to try and do it with the same... I mean, I think there's players at United now that have sacked 3 or 4 managers. Every Ten Hag player has now suddenly got a sacking on their CV. Yeah, like, a lot of United fans were saying, well, he bought most of these players, Mark. Well, the next manager didn't. So you've got a lot of players, again, who've sacked managers, and that always becomes problematic, because when they've got experience of sacking a manager, they know it's never going to be them that get sacked.
But from the outside looking in, like, we tried to look at it when INEOS came in, like, you know, I just feel the fact that, like, Garnacho and Ahmad, and, like, I know Mainey was injured yesterday, but there's a real core of youth players that have come through the academy, which, you know, as a fan, is just something to latch on to. And, you know, I'd really be focusing on that, because that ties into the rebuild, because fans are more forgiving as towards youngsters.
Very interesting as well that Oliver Hunt mentions Pochettino. I mean, he's another one who's like 2 ships passing in the night that never dock in the same harbour.
I think Pochettino, you'd be...
But if he'd have been free, I think they'd have looked at him. But it's
just funny that all these managers are international management as well, isn't it? Tuchel's at England, Pochettino's in America, obviously Nagelsmann's at Germany. Like, it feels like it's almost going the other way.
I also think as well...
Ancelotti, I mean, he feels like the time up could be at Real Madrid.
Yeah, but that'll be the summer, isn't it? I just think that as well... You shouldn't limit yourself, if you're a big club, to what's available. You should be going for what you can get. Now, look.
What do you mean by that, though?
But what I'm saying is, if you want Emery and he fancies it, then you do
who's your Emery then? If you know, like, obviously at the moment we're going through that, but who's your Emery that you go out and get?
If I could my dream manager at the moment, then I think I would go Nagelsmann.
Dream manager, Nagelsmann?
Well, you can't have Klopp and you can't have Pep because of Man City and Liverpool connections. Ancelotti's not going to leave Real Madrid. Zidane's not going to take that job. And then I think you're fishing in a pond where you've got to go risk. There's no standout candidate, is there?
No, but that's what I'm saying. Dream.
I wouldn't mind Emery. He's done, but you're not going to get him.
But I think he seems more progression at Villa than he does Manchester United.
What about Simeone?
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is, there's a lot of people talking about the Potters and the Xavis because they're available. Potter. There's a lot of people talking about what's available. Well, Manchester United.
Well, yeah, but we've just gone on about.
No,
come on.
But even if you're Manchester United,
yeah, but there's a bit of you in that though.
But even if you're Spurs, like, why should you look at managers that are available? Pick up the phone. I mean, look, if you fancy the Stuttgart manager, he's apparently a hipster. Bring him up. Like, I don't know why so many Man United fans and other fans are talking about what's available. There's nothing to stop you picking up the phone. Oh, yes, there is. We're owned by the Glazers and we're in debt. That should not be.
That's what you're going to have to look for, yeah.
But how are you going to be successful if you're limiting yourself to what's available? Like, you've got to actually go, how much is it to get a manager out of his contract? Does anybody know? If I wanted Emery, how much is it going to cost me? He's not going to have a release clause of 60 million, is he?
Well, if I was Aston Villa, I'll be putting it up there because fundamentally he's running the club from top to bottom.
I don't know. That's the thing.
But that's what I mean. You're not at the stage to get the dream appointment, though. You're at the stage.
How much is Nagelsmann going to cost to get out of Germany?
But that's what I mean.
It's not going to be 30 million, is it?
So yeah, but I just don't think it'll be.
But 30 million doesn't even buy you Xerxes. If it costs you 30 million to get, if you ring up Nagelsmann and he goes, I ain't saying anything publicly, but I'll take that job. You've got to get me out the German FA. And then you ring the German FA up and they go 30 million and you go, forget it.
Yeah, but
you pay the fucking 30 million. How a manager of that quality with the potential he's got to be here for the next 5 years, what's that over 30 million over 5 years?
No, but that's the thing as well. Like, it's very basic to say. But
Amorim's is apparently 15 million. Well, again, that's a long-term manager that might be going to Man City.
Yeah, exactly. But and as well, where Manchester United are, like, it's a dumpster fire at the moment from top to bottom. They're trying to put those fires out. They're doing the right things, and but
the manager's got to want it.
They're trying to change that. But if you're Amorim, I can't say. I can't do his name right. If you're the Sporting Lisbon manager and you're trying to come across, like, you want to be going right. City and United is not a fair comparison, but there's probably teams like that. Brighton have got it more sorted out than.
Yeah, they know it. They know the next manager now.
Yeah, and even like Newcastle, you probably said. So it's like, why, as a manager, you're working in this finite amount of time.
But you know what? As well, I think I just worry that Sir Jim Radcliffe has said, right, sack Ten Hag, and then Omar Barada, the CEO, by 5 o'clock today, I want the list of everyone who's interested. Ring everybody up, and we'll do it. And then Omar Barada rings him up and goes, "Come on, then, I've got my pen and paper. Put it down." Why? No one.
Yeah, no one.
What? Everyone said no. Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's a lad from Plymouth who used to play for us who's interested in the job.
Can't go ex-player. Can't go ex-player.
You need Rude to come out and say, yeah, I am interim. I'm not interested in the job. Clear that shit out straight away.
Yeah, they've got a bit. Well, they have said that, haven't they? They've said
they've said that. It almost needs Rude to say that. Of like,
I'm a short term.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just.
But then the interesting thing is as well. I mean, you can go as deep as this as you like, but I mean, Rennie Heck and Ruud van Nistelrooy have only been there for 3 months. Does the new manager have to work with them? Because that's
how much is Van Nistelrooy going to be cost?
But that's a hindrance, isn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you bring in. Oh, you've got to work with these players and you've got to work with that coach. Well, that's failed before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it'd be very interesting. But I guarantee you, if you pick up the phone to Emery, Amorim, Nagelsmann, and say, "Do you want the Man United job?" At least one of them will say yes. So then you go and pay the money, don't you?
But
where, if you're spending £80 million on Anthony, you can spend £30 million on Nagelsmann.
But that's where INEOS isn't an Anthony signing, isn't it? And where Manchester United, where INEOS have come in at Manchester United, they're trying to identify cost-cutting savings. And like, I feel like Manchester United are almost not at a point, like we said, to hire these top managers, and also not at a point to get someone out of a contract that's very expensive.
I just find it incredible how so many Man United fans are talking about what's available like it's their fucking money. We're Manchester United. We've failed for fucking years. Go and get the best manager. You're talking about £30 million, which is nothing compared to what you're happy to pay for we've just spent £60 million on Agate.
Yeah, but they're at a stage now where that £30 million needs to almost guarantee success when you're talking about a manager.
But a manager's more important than a striker or a midfielder.
No, I know that, but like in terms of, like, I just feel Man United are at a point where they can't hire this dream man because of they need time to, and they were trying to buy themselves time, but like this dream manager that you're thinking is going to come in, then go and get them. I just don't think they're going to get.
I disagree. I just think people are putting their parameters way too narrow when literally just ring up whoever you want.
Garnacho, Højlund put out statements saying thanks.
Piss off. I like both players, but I said the same about Bruno. I mean, I've got to say, I understand the PR of it, but what do you think you're gonna what do you think that's gonna do for you? Manager's been sacked, and you're coming out saying thank you, and yet we've watched United for weeks play shit. And if there was a Man United player that over the last few months had consistently put in even a 7 out of 10, and they came out with an Insta post saying sorry about that, manager, then I understand it. But every Man United player has underperformed.
Yeah.
So talk is cheap, isn't it? I don't really get it. I don't really get why you need to do an Instagram post or a tweet about the manager. The fan base is absolutely fucking livid, and we've just sacked a manager again. A player coming out saying thanks for the memories and all that lot. Who's...
Well, it's just PR.
It's just literally just PR.
It's like when someone dies, isn't it?
I mean,
People have to
I guarantee you in the next hour, when's Rashford's? When's Deleu's? When's Casemiro's? So we're going to get the whole team saying thanks to the manager, and yet you've all fucking sacked him.
Is Tom Eaton still there?
Yeah,
Where's Tom Eaton?
I despair at that PR because the guy hasn't been sacked because he's...
down to 2s, Xavi is on some websites.
He's been sacked because the players haven't performed as well.
2-1.
And they're very lucky that they're not getting sacked.
Xavi would just... he's got links, obviously, to Barada, hasn't he? Has he?
Who?
Xavi.
I don't know. The Xavi thing's really interesting, but look, a very, very good reputation, but he was a Barcelona legend and it didn't go that well. You can't hide behind that.
Amaron's just done tweet. He's just had his press conference. He said, I was expecting this question. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about the future because otherwise I'll have to comment. I'm very proud to be sporting coach. That's all.
Yeah.
Not a no.
He wants the job.
Yeah, exactly.
He wants the job. I've been watching Goldbridge's career mode and I absolutely would love to do it. Well, look.
I know what you're thinking. Ten Hag's gone, but what about the EFL?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that's what we're thinking about. Let's talk about the look at Charlton on Saturday for the Wrexham game, but let's start off with the Championship. Coventry did win.
Coventry won, yeah, an amazing comeback against Luton Town. Fantastic for them.
Can't believe how low Luton are considering they were like the hipster team in the Premier League.
Rob Edwards
really
could have been a contender for the United job last season.
Really struggling, Luton. What's going on, Luton?
Sunderland have won again. Joe Bellingham scored, and there's a fantastic goal for the second one as well. And Jordan Henderson has apparently been given the green light to come back to Sunderland.
There we go.
Yeah, would you like to see that?
Don't really care.
Thank you. Mansfield Town, Birmingham City, one tough place to go, Mansfield.
Nigel Clough.
Yeah.
Nigel.
You can take your medals. Charlton 2, Wrexham 2, we spoke about that. Notts County 1, Harrogate Town 0. They're up to third in the league, Notts County. Big win for my Cheltenham Town. They went all the way to Carlisle and they stuffed them, and they've got West Ham at home in the Carabao Cup tomorrow night. And disappointing, Moors went up northeast against Gateshead and lost 1-0.
I'll tell you what, big shout out to Mansfield because it's got the reputation of being a bit of shit.
I'll tell you what, I thought really...
It has. Nottingham folk don't necessarily respect Mansfield, and but Nigel Clough has done a great job there. And I'm telling you now, Mansfield Town being in the playoff area of League One and that close to the Championship is just absolutely incredible. I remember when I was a kid growing up, and we used to get the Nottingham Evening Post. So you'd always get. Or Central News would always have stuff about Mansfield, and that Keith Alexander, I think they were always like a 3rd division club or the old 4th division. So well done, give them a shout out. Focus on the EFL.
You've been a bit anti-Blues really at the moment, you are. Like when I came on the stream the other day,
I'm not anti-Blues. I'm not anti-Blues. I just think you'll get promoted very easily. But no, you know what? Being at the Valley on Saturday afternoon, the
good old
atmosphere was absolutely incredible. I mean, that is the purity of football. Like it was. Wrexham fans were great as well, but it was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I think not too far away from that as well. Probably the best ticket in town at the moment is Brentford. Just unbelievable goals and atmosphere.
Exciting manager.
Yeah,
could do a good job. Up the table.
He's
lower down the table.
I don't want to disrespect Brentford because they're doing really well, but he does deserve a bigger job. But
that's what I mean. Yeah, but you're in that we're Man United phase. Like Thomas Frank could be a really good appointment.
But sometimes you are what you are.
You'd be coming down for Man United.
I was at Charlton, Alan Kirbishley. What do you think about that?
Yeah, he has been linked with the job. It's going to be interesting.
No, I mean, what I mean is like...
Kirbishley down to 6-1.
He was a very, very good manager
for that club.
At that club. Yeah. And, doesn't mean he was a Man City manager,
That's interesting. Romano saying Vinicius Jr. will not travel to Paris as Real Madrid. No, he will not win the Ballon d'Or.
Must be Rodri then.
That's really weird. He was like 2 to 5 on.
Very, very, very quick. Very, very quickly talk about that then. The Ballon d'Or winner for me.
No Bellingham, no Ancelotti, no Perez.
I find that incredible.
He was 2 to 5 on.
I find that incredible that Rodri's going to win that. Maybe this... Oh, you know what, though? In fairness,
Spain.
And Man City fans are going to fall off their chair here. I went into the Euros saying that if Bellingham won the Euros, he should win the Ballon d'Or. And as much as we don't respect Man City, Rodri did...
Bellingham won the Champions League.
Yeah, they didn't win the Champions League. I think I said this. I mean, God, what a week! What a weekend! El Clasico.
Bloody hell.
To do that at the Bernabeu.
Yeah.
I mean, that Barcelona glow up is incredible. What? Okay, calm down. This is fine. That Barcelona turnaround. I mean, I thought what they did against Bayern was fantastic, but to do that, I don't. That needs to be studied. How quickly they've gone from mediocre to probably the best team in the world at the moment. And the interesting thing with them is, though, is it sustainable? Because I remember Napoli doing this a couple of years ago, where everyone thought they were going to win the Champions League. They did win Serie A, but it's whether they can sustain it.
Yeah, but they're at a higher level and can attract, like, you know, I don't want to get into the finances because that's still a joke, but like you look at that front three, they feel a bit like Spain, and you know, I don't watch the Liga, so Spain experts educate me more, but like Yamal, Rafinha, Lewandowski feels like a front three that fits the structure. Whereas, like, you keep hearing reports about Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. wanting to play in the same spot.
That's Madrid's problem.
Yeah, like Bellingham was obviously playing further forward.
Yeah.
They want to drop him. But it feels like they're trying to put very luxury square pegs in round holes, doesn't it?
That Mbappe signing just feels like a Perez. I want the best player in the world, but it's definitely disrupted the way they play. They might get used to it. It's early days, but anyway, back to the Ballon d'Or. I think. I said this after the game against Dortmund. I think there's Vinicius Jr. is probably my favourite player anyway, but I think he's probably the best player in the world at the moment.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I don't see a player that's better than him in the world, unless you're going to say a Rodri or a Haaland. But I don't think that's the sort of player I think is the best player in the world anyway.
And I feel it's a little bit counterintuitive for me to say, because it shouldn't be an attacking player for an attacking player sense, but like Rodri winning the Ballon d'Or just feels a little bit.
Why is he winning the Ballon d'Or anyway?
Well, he's not definitely winning. Like his odds are just being slightly 4-9, not 1-20. Vinicius Junior was on. So is that some sort of? It's not UEFA competition.
Who
anymore,
votes for this?
Thogden. Actually, I think Thogden did get a vote, didn't he, last year? No, it's more writers, isn't it? It's not UEFA anymore, is it, or FIFA, whatever it used to be.
I've got to be honest. Rodri is the best holding midfielder in the world, and he did win the Euros with Spain, but he shouldn't be winning the Ballon d'Or over Vinicius Jr. That to me is ridiculously niche.
Yeah. Jude Bellingham, I think, should be up there.
Rodri should not be winning the Ballon d'Or over Vinicius Jr. It's just absolutely not. They won the fucking Champions League, and he's the best. I think he's the best player in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
Man City didn't even do that well in the Champions League.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, and they won the fucking Premier League. What a surprise!
Let me just double check.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, no, that was definitely from the official Fabrizio Romano Twitter. So yeah, very interesting.
No, I think it's a load of bollocks. I mean, I do rate Rodri, but I think that's a load of bollocks. I think they've got that wrong.
Yeah, I agree. What a day!
Yeah,
what a day you've had.
No EAFC today, mate, because it just feels a bit wrong to be playing as Manchester United.
You can put your name in the window if you do a good job.
On a day where Ten Hag's been sat. And plus, you never know when we're going to be live again on the United Stand. There's so much going on. So I'll probably play that again tomorrow.
If Southgate gets seen at the Arndale, I can't wait for your live stream.
I mean, interesting to see what's going to happen yet.
It is very interesting. It feels like there's more questions than answers, and when it comes from a person who's not a fan of Manchester United, that really intrigues me.
Thanks everyone who's tuned in. Lots going on the United Stand, so make sure you check out that. But really grateful to everyone tuning in for this. Remember, we are doing these every Monday and Friday. Preview on a Friday at midday and review on a Monday. Make sure you subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Get your comments in if you didn't watch live. And if you're listening on the podcast, absolute legends. Really appreciate it.
Yes, I really appreciate you. Really appreciate you. Well done, Noel. Have a good afternoon, and let's see who gets appointed Manchester United manager.
Just want to say respect to Erik Ten Hag. Enjoy your winnings, and thank you.
See you down the Rapids.